Meal planning is a great way to end your week, or rather start your next week, and it will save you money, it will save you time, and it will help you pick healthier options. So I'm a huge fan of meal planning. Let's dive into this week's meal plan for me, and I'm also going to cook up a really simple, new to me recipe to share with you all. So let's dive in. So it is Monday morning. We had a lovely social weekend and I haven't made a meal plan for the week yet. However, I did get a farmer's pick vegetable delivery, which included eggs this time. I have done an unsponsored review of farmer's pick that you can check out in this video card linked up here somewhere, as well as down below. But that means that I got these ingredients that I didn't know beforehand what they were, except the eggs. So now I know what I'm working with for the week, and I want to make a quick meal plan because there's a couple of things that I need to use up. And yeah, let's make a plan for the week. Okay, so as you would know if you follow along in this channel, I typically plan for lunch and dinner. I don't really plan for breakfast. We don't always have breakfast. If we do, it's often a smoothie, some toast or something like that. So it's not really something we need to plan for. But if I'm looking at the week ahead for lunches, I've actually got we went to an event and I did my zucchini slice that I make quite often here on the channel. So I've actually got some leftovers of that I'll be having for lunch today, and my husband is having leftovers from dinner last night. So lunch today is already taken care of with leftovers. But then what I want to do is use up some of the things that I've got on hand, and I've had this tofu. This one's from Aldi. It's $2.59, I believe, still, for 450 grams. So for protein, it is a really good one. And you know, if you're not new to the channel, that I love to make fried rice. Fried rice at home can be really, really healthy, really simple. So we're just going to use this and a bag of stir-fry vegetables, and I might chuck in a few of the fresh vegetables from my vegetable drawer as well. But this is going to be a really simple lunch. I'll probably add some eggs as well. So 3 days this week we will be doing fried rice with tofu and vegetables for lunch. On Friday and Sunday, we're just going to do a really simple omelette or some kind of eggs on toast for lunch/brunch. And on Saturday, I've actually got a friend and her son staying, so we're going to be going out for brunch and go out and do an activity during the day. So I don't need to plan for that. For my dinners, I have this pack of short-dated gravy beef. I picked this up at Aldi. It's 700 grams. And it needs to be used up today. So rather than chucking that in my freezer, I'm actually going to cook that up for dinner tonight and make a beef stew with some of the beautiful vegetables I got, this beautiful meat here. I also have a beef stock that I made myself from a slow cooker meal a while ago that I've pulled out of my freezer. So I'm going to use that as part of my broth base, and then I might add some stock cubes as well. So beef stew is going to be dinner for 2 nights. And then I had a raid in my freezer. I have plenty of chicken, both thigh and breast. So I'm gonna pull out some chicken, and we're just gonna do chicken and vegetables. I've also got some asparagus that I think would be really nice to cook up. So we're gonna do that for dinner 2 nights. The asparagus will probably only be enough for 1 night. And then on my weekend, I have my friend coming to stay with her son. So we're just going to keep the meal very simple. We're going to do burgers and salad on the Friday night. I've already got burger buns in my freezer that we can use. I will need to pick up some salad items unless I can make do with what I have. And we're just going to make our own burgers with some beef mince. So that's going to be very simple. And on Saturday, we're going to do probably sausages and some mashed potato with a side of vegetables. Again, I've got frozen vegetables. I've got a lot of fresh vegetables, so that's all good. And in my freezer, I've actually got a very large roast, beef roast that I bought at my local butcher's a little while ago. It's quite humongous. So we might cook that up in the turbo oven and or my slow cooker for a Sunday roast with vegetables as well. So actually no rice, no pasta this week. I'm just really feeling, it's been a cold start to spring here in Australia, in the south part where I live. So I've been really just craving like really hearty meals. So this beef stew and the dishes I've got planned for this week will be really good. So without further ado, let me show you how we're gonna cook up this short dated beef and make a really delicious meal for dinner. And here are all of our ingredients for this beef stew. We have 700 grams of beef. I'm going to cube this up. I'm going to be using avocado oil, some thyme, some bay leaves, some salt and pepper. I might add some other stuff. This is some beef stock from that I had in my freezer, so we're going to be using that, which will be quite concentrated, but I might need to mix up a little bit more just to get the right liquid volumes. We've got an onion, 4 cloves of garlic, a couple of potatoes, a couple of sweet potatoes, some funny looking carrots from my recent budget challenge, some corn flour, some tomato paste. You can also use tomato sauce. I've got quite a bit of celery. I probably won't use all of this, but I'll go a bit more generous on the celery because I've got this to use up, and I'll freeze whatever I don't use today. We've got some Worcester sauce. I think you can also use soy sauce as a substitute, and I may end up using this vinegar. I haven't decided yet. I've basically found a few recipes online that lets you do this in the Instant Pot. So I'm going to get going on this, and we're going to start with cubing this up and putting some salt and pepper on it and sauteing it in our Instant Pot. Now you might be wondering why I'm using my slow cooker function on the Instant Pot when I could pressure cook this. And on this particular day, I was actually finishing work really late. And on days like that, I love putting things on the slow cooker function because you don't have to watch them. You can just work away in another room and let the whatever you're cooking cook long and slow. So I love though that the Instant Pot, and I'm not sponsored in any way, but I love that the Instant Pot has the ability to pressure cook, slow cook, and a lot of other cool functions as well. So slow cook and pressure cook are definitely the two features I use the most. But if you are using a slow cooker, you can do the step I'm doing now in a fry pan or in a pot on your stove. But essentially we're putting it on saute and we are searing the meat. Basically, if you're not used to cooking a lot with meat, you're basically sealing the meat on all sides. And it's okay if your Instant Pot looks like things are burning a little bit. It will come off as we do the slow cook. So don't worry too much about it, but we're not cooking the meat all the way through here. We're just searing it on the outside. And then same feature on the saute function, we're doing the onion and the garlic. I did add a little bit of oil as well here. And I find that if you're cooking on fairly hot temperature like I am here, it's really good to use avocado oil. It goes really well on hotter temperatures. And then we're basically just adding in all of our ingredients. I added in some 1 beef stock cube with some extra beef broth, and then the stock that I had from my freezer. And then just combining that all together, using up the very last of my tomato paste and getting the last little bit out of the jar there. I did add some Worcester sauce as well. Apologies for the shaky footage. My camera decided to die just as I was filming this. And my seasoning. So now the only thing we're going to leave out is the cornstarch or the corn flour. You can use either because we are going to do that at the very end to thicken up the sauce. So you want to cook this long and slow. I recommend cooking on low heat for as long as you, well, not as long as you can, but follow the recipe. I actually ended up doing mine for about 8 hours all up. But it smelled amazing in the house at this point. And yeah, just giving that a little bit of a check and checking in on the meat. I was hoping the meat would be tender enough to kind of shred, which it sort of wasn't, but it was still very, very tasty. And you'll see here at the end how it all turned out. But now we're adding equal parts water and cornstarch or corn flour, and then we're going to just let it continue to cook on low, or if you're using an Instant Pot like me, just do it on the keep warm function for, I think I did it for about another 10 minutes or so, or 5 to 10 minutes, and just let it thicken up nicely. And the nice thing about this is that even after a really long day of work, or if you've got, busy family life and kids and all that sort of stuff, this is even nicer. But this thickened up really beautifully and turned out to be a great meal. And I will definitely 100% be making this again. I might actually cut the vegetables a little bit smaller next time. All right, moment of truth. I've served up dinner. My husband is sampling it as we speak, and oh, that's good. That is really good. I realized that my chunks of meat were possibly a little bit too big, so I'm gonna have to cut them up a bit. You would have seen that I added the cornstarch water slurry, so I just mixed cold water. You don't want warm or hot water because it'll get really gunky. So 3 tablespoons of cornstarch with 3 tablespoons of cold water, and I just let it sit on the keep warm function. If you have an instant pot or if you have a slow cooker, you just leave it on low for another couple of minutes. This is really hearty, really delicious. I can highly recommend this. I mostly followed the recipe. I will link the recipe that I did follow down below if you would like to replicate this. And even if you're meatless, I think this is just really beautiful, even just the vegetable soup part of it, or stew rather. So I've got a little bit of clearance bread and my stew, and I'm gonna go have dinner now, and I look forward to see you soon. I've had a really long day at work and I really feel like a sweet treat today, and whilst sugar is not good for you, sometimes in life we just need a little sweet treat. So we're going to be cooking up an apple crumble, and I'll link the recipe down below. It's not my recipe originally, but I have modified this recipe a little bit for a gluten-free option. The original recipe is an apple crumble with lemon, and I will be making mine with lemon as well, but let me show you the ingredient that's a little bit different. So I had to substitute a few things. First of all, you can use either brown or white sugar in this recipe. I have used both in the past, but I do prefer brown sugar in cooking when I can, so I'm going to be using that today. This recipe calls for oats, but my husband, whilst some gluten-free people can have oats, my husband cannot. So I'm going to be using quinoa flakes, and thank you to my friend who got me onto these. These I buy at Aldi or Coles in the kind of health food section. They're not as cheap as oats, but they are not too bad, not as expensive as gluten-free oats can be. So I use these for kind of oatmeal, overnight oat type things for him. So we're going to be using these in today's recipe. And I have made this recipe quite a few times with just plain gluten-free flour instead of regular flour. I haven't found that you need the self-raising one because this is a crumble. It doesn't really need, it's not like a cake or a bread that needs to rise. So this works just fine. So let's assemble our ingredients and put together this little sweet treat surprise. My husband is going to be really excited. This is one of his favorites, and he doesn't know I'm making it with you. So let's start my oven to preheat and mix up all of our ingredients. Alright, so my oven is preheating here in the background, and I've got a couple of apples that I'm going to peel and cut up into smaller pieces. They've got some bumps and stuff on them. They're not perfect, but they'll be really tasty. I also find that this recipe, it says 6 to 8 portions on the original recipe, and I normally kind of halve this because I find that that makes 4 generous dessert serves for my husband and I. So that's what we'll be doing today. And it's a beautiful sunny day outside. We've had such cold, horrible weather for a few days, and I just love coming up to my kitchen. If you haven't already seen my whole kitchen tour, I will link that up here for you somewhere in a card, as well as down below this video. But I have a beautiful bright kitchen and beautiful view out the window, which is so nice. So I love coming up here after working downstairs in my office all day, and yeah, just spending some time using my hands and creating dishes. I didn't always used to feel like this, but I find that if you have a nice, comforting, clean space, it can be so nice. So anyway, without further waffling, let me cut up my apples and get started preparing the apples, and then we're going to do the crumb mixture to put on top. And there is our filling. This is so nice with the brown sugar and the lemon, the cinnamon, tiny bit of flour. Like, smells amazing. If you can use fresh lemon juice, definitely do it. I had a couple of fresh lemons in my fruit bowl. So this is ready. Now we're going to use the same bowl because I'm lazy and who likes doing dishes. So we're going to mix up the crumble part and crumble it over and chuck it in the oven. So let's go. And there is our sand textured mix to go on top. I haven't made this with oats. I imagine the texture would be slightly different compared to quinoa because quinoa is a lot smaller than rolled oats. But now we're just going to sprinkle this over our apples and pop them in the oven for about half an hour or so until the top looks crusty and done. So I'll see you then. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I find that cooking, especially on days when I've had a big day, is really therapeutic, and I hope that you can find that space for yourself in your kitchen as well, regardless if you have a big or a small one. I highly recommend this apple crumble as well. It is really nice. It's an absolute crowd pleaser, and it was such a comforting way to end a really long day at work, which was really, really lovely. I hope you do give this a go, and thanks again for hanging out with me. I can't wait to see you in the next video. If you haven't already, give this video a like and a thumbs up. It really helps my channel, and I look forward to see you in my next video.